my name is Dalia Rokshana. I'm an assistant professor of chemistry at Whitman College. So for the Women History Month, I'll be sharing my personal experience as a Bengali Muslim research scientist who is working in USA right now. So I identify myself, as I mentioned, as a Bengali, Bangladeshi, Muslim, a mother, a scientist, and an educator. Cultural identity is something I adhere to very strongly. It's my root. It's something unique that I carry with me. So when people actually see me, they would always tie me to the Indian subcontinent, like from India. That's totally okay because Bangladesh was part of India before 1947 and then got separated from India, became Pakistan, and then now an independent country. But culturally, we are very similar in so many ways: clothing, food, lifestyle. So it's okay to associate me with someone from India. My religious identity is something, however, is not very visible, and this is just the way I grown up in back home, not wearing traditional, what in the West things traditional Muslim woman attire, covering basically everything, including wearing headscarf, which I don't do. I was not brought up in that way growing up, and this is a norm in my country or even in the Indian subcontinent basically. So in the West it's different though. So often when you think of Muslim women, we think of oppression, we think of marginalization, think of lack of power. But I'll start with several examples from my sort of own culture, from my own country, how women are empowered, and there are many examples that the women hold power in, like head of state. So basically, equivalent to president, we call prime minister in Bangladesh. And many of the countries, India, Pakistan, Nepal, Malaysia, basically the subcontinent there, we have many leading female Muslim women at the government and education. I'll share with you today with some short stories of very few influential women from my country. These are two sort of head of states in the 20th century and 21st century. And Sheikh Hasina, he was the prime minister and got elected twice to lead our country. Similarly, Khaleda Zia is the other leading person, also got elected twice. And they are leading the countries for last 30 years or so. Sheikh Hasina's father was the founding father of the country, and she kind of got into the politics through the families. Her entire family was actually assassinated in 1975, and she and her sister was studying abroad, and so they're the living member of the family. And then she went back to the country and got involved in political position. Khaleda Zia comes from not from a political family. Her husband was president in after her husband was also assassinated actually, and after that she sort of took over the leading positions in the party and got elected twice. So this woman in the woman as a head of state, it's not a new phenomena. We had many other influential women. I'll just bring two examples of sort of 18th century or late 17th century women. They are writer, they are social worker, they were involved in policy making, politics. In two person I could actually name very influential person. They shape sort of the cultural norms and the status of women in our country. So Begum Rukia was a writer and a social worker. She established a school for girls, and which still exists, and she was involved in a lot of social reform. She was someone who had issues with conservatism. So Islamic conservatism being way too conservative, and she had built sort of an association for women, and there are debates and conferences regarding the women's status in Islam and how the political Islam or the Islam practiced at that time deviated from the actual teachings of Islam. So she kind of brought a revolution in the societies and empowered women in different way. So Begum Rokeya is a very influential person. She was a writer and social worker. So there's another person that I would like to mention is Begum Sufia Kamal. She was a poet and a political activist, and she ran movement during 1950s and 60s, and a very important icon in Bangladesh. During her childhood, women's education was prohibited, and she could not actually afford to get education. Surprisingly, she learned 7 different languages. She got married at the age of 11 and continued actually writing poet and literature work, and was political activist throughout her entire career, and was very active during the Liberation War of 1971. So we have this different, women in our societies very early on, and they are very active in women's education. They are very active in social work, social reform, and also the status of women in Islam. So that's the cultural background I come from, and this definitely shaped many generations. So women were very much involved in social reform, status of women in Islam. There are many examples, and I want to bring up another slide. This is from a language movement, and these are all women actually protesting in 1953. And you can see they are wearing traditional clothing. Some has head coverings and some don't. So this is how the Muslim women in back home, their cultural upbringing is that way. We're still practicing Muslims, but regardless of complete covering, or not involved in the society, or doesn't have power to change things in our society. So the women I talked about, they shaped the culture in Bangladesh significant ways. Growing up in a tiny country around Southeast Asia. I'm not focusing on the other part of the country. There are many examples that you will find. But even from my tiny part of the world, women are empowered. They made a lot of changes. I grew up in a very small village with population about 1,200. It's primarily farming community. There are a school, elementary school there, but there are no other school around it. So you have to actually go 7-8 miles to get to middle school or high schools. The schooling system is not very good. Just to focus on a little bit, I'm actually from the southwest of the country, in a very small town. So I grew up, my early childhood was there, homeschooled a little bit because the education system is not really that great during that time. I was always wanted to get educated, and my family has a lot of influence. My father was instrumental to my success, I would say, to this day. He treated boys and girls equally. I have a siblings. I have an older brother, and I'm in the middle, and I have a younger sister. So I grew up with my brother, best part of my childhood. And my father, honestly, was exceptional. He treated both of us exactly the same way. Whatever my brother could do, I was able to do. There was no restriction what I could not do. So growing up in a smaller settings where education system was not good, quickly I got bored. I wanted to learn more. So my family actually took me from a small tiny village and took it to a smaller city where my grandparents were. So I changed school and I was terrified. I was fifth grader. I didn't know much, and I go into a better school system. Quickly I learned stuff, but I was extremely terrified. Didn't do so well at the beginning, but quickly picked up. So my earlier education up to the college was all actually in this area. I transferred to a good school, then to a better school for my middle school education from 6th to 10th, and then got admission to one of the really, we say college, but it's like 11th and 12th grade basically. It's one of the top schools, and I quickly picked up stuff even though I didn't come from a background. I quickly excelled in science and all other areas, and that's where my earlier education is. Then I got admission to a university, so I moved from my tiny town to basically close to capital in the suburb of Dhaka. It's one of the best public universities actually there. It's a smaller in that's where I got my undergraduate education in the Dhaka. It's a best school, and I was again very terrified. I was coming from a rural area. Most of the folks are coming from a very influential from the cities. Their education system was way better than probably what I got. But regardless, I was very determined and worked really hard during my stay there, and graduated with ranking second among about 40 students in a graduating class from chemistry. So it's the determination and the hard work probably got me there, and the support of my family. So once I finished my education there, I actually moved from all the way, so go here from sort of Dhaka to US. That was my first time out of country. Again, every step I did was always transitioning, always doing better academically, and get to basically on the other side of the world. So it's like a 12 hours time difference. Probably an arrow. It's about 8,200 miles away from home. My family encouraged me to go anywhere I wanted to go and get my education. So that was something, there was no question about it, whether I was, I could leave the house or not, or whether I could get education or not. So that's sort of, my story coming to the US and growing up in a Bengali, in a Indian sort of culture. So I started as a graduate student in University of Montana. My ex-husband was also at that time there. We have a daughter. She's 16 now. So I spent about 10 years in Montana for my graduate work and postdoctoral work. Again, when I came to the US, the thing that I encountered is my cultural identity and my religious identity. Something I didn't really feel that way. No questions when I was growing up. Whether I were to wear headscarf, my religious identity was not questioned in my own place. But coming to the West, I felt like it's not visible. It's not visible to people, and it's the perception of people that I think in the West they have what a Muslim woman should look like, or what sort of things they are capable of doing. So it's beyond maybe grasp. Like being a progressive Muslim woman, I am all the way from Bangladesh to here, going through higher education, doing research and flourishing. So that was something that's not the norm that the people would think in this part of the country, and that's something that you don't know probably enough of the cultural difference. Muslims are all over the world, so when we think about Muslim women, we always associate them with the Middle East. That's where the focuses are, but there are Muslims all over the places, and they all have different clothing style, different status in the society, education, and all other various aspects of life could be completely unexpected or completely different that people doesn't really think about that often. Okay, I keep rolling. Should I repeat any of the things, or
No, okay.
That's great. Okay. So after transitioning from sort of a research career, I always wanted to teach and contribute to the society in terms of educating the next generation. And that is something that I kind of got the inspiration from reading the biography of all the women that was involved in my society, the inspiration from my own family, the lack of educational resources during my own time. So I felt like there are a lot we could do as a woman to improve educational system and the infrastructure. I'm showing a beautiful picture of my village where I come from. This is actually, I have taken the shots. It's really similar to Walla Walla in a way. It's a countryside, farming side. But I go back every 2 years since I got to the States. I get to interact with girls in my community. I get to interact with various folks in the community, and trying to instill or inspire them to inspire them to get education. If I can come somewhere where there is no infrastructure, very limited resources for education all the way up here, and become a successful educator and a scientist, I think anyone can do it. So just need that sort of excitement, inspiration. So I do go back and trying to improve my sort of own community, own circle where I grew up, and sort of my root in there. As an educator, I think we have a responsibility to empower women, to create that sort of safety net, create resources, and and show some role model that the women can see, um, for them to succeed in a career. Um, an academic institute can play a very critical role in nation building. Um, Education is the key to allowing women to hone their talents and gain the knowledge and expertise they would need to assume leadership roles. So we as an educator actually can contribute very significantly, and in the education of women. No matter who you are, we all could stand to benefit from having more women actually in a leadership positions or hierarchy in our society. So take home messages would be, I would encourage every woman I meet, every little girl when I go back to my own village, encourage them to have the education, encourage them to be brave, be courageous, don't be afraid of trying new things, and have that sort of attitude, then you can only kind of progress through. So as we build like a building brick by brick, we need to build our community, and we need to empower the little boys and the little girl equally, to bring our society in a sort of a play field where everyone is contributing to the needs of the society. Um,
I apologize for texting. I have someone that's.
Sorry.
My next appointment is at 11:30, so I do.
Okay, we have 15 minutes.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
good.
Oh, we're good.
I was just letting him know. I was like, don't come in. And I get there if you come early. They usually don't come early, so I just want to make sure we keep busting in the door.
So that would be my message to every woman in a leadership role, every mother, every father, every siblings, that they encourage the woman in their life to go become a lifelong learner, contribute to the societies, and only in that way we can form a society where women is contributing as well as the men in the societies. And I will end with actually some very influential person in my life. My father and my mother, of course. Most importantly, my father. My father was the one actually pushed me through all these years, getting education and standing up for me, actually letting others know that my girl can do anything she wants to do. There is no one else can say that she is not capable of, or she can't really go do that as a Muslim woman. So that was I think the most inspirational sort of little lights that I had in my entire life, and that got me through all the way from tiny village to actually to here, and then I'm going back and contributing to my own societies. These are some of my friends from the university. They are all female in traditional clothing, and you can see some all different way of dressing up. But one thing I want to note that they are all actually in the education sectors, or in governments, or holding leading positions in our country, and contributing to the building of the societies. So privileged to have them as a classmate, getting to actually know and learn from them, and also inspired by them to contribute to the societies in a broader context. So So my name is Dalia Rokshana, and thank you for listening and joining us today.